Welcome to the Vikings Central podcast. I'm Brett. I'm joined here today with Justin from the Purple and Gold for Days. How you doing, Justin?
I'm good, Brett. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you. It's we're just a little over a week away from the draft, that most wonderful time of the year, as they say. But thanks for having me on. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you for joining. And I feel like this is like a football fan's like second Christmas almost.
Yes.
It's just like so much anticipation leading up to it. And it's almost better than the draft itself, to be honest with you, because there's all these smoke screens and all these predictions, all these mock drafts. It does get a little repetitive after a while. So, coming up now, we're ready for the real thing. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun this next week or so. And then obviously next Thursday, Friday, Saturday is
absolutely
when the business gets down to it. So obviously the big talker kind of right now within the NFL, and the Vikings obviously have been in this conversation as well, with Mike Florio kind of tweeting about it, writing a story about it. The Trey Lance situation. Sounds like he's available for trade. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, they haven't talked too glowingly about Trey Lance recently. So it's kind of just been a surefire thing that Trey Lance is going to be available for trade. They're going to be willing to talk to other teams. Where do you kind of sit with that, Justin?
Well, what's funny about this most wonderful time of the year is everybody's lying. I remember early on in the TV show Survivor, when they did the first All-Star seasons, and Boston Rob hit one of his first lines is, "Nobody trusts anybody. Just forget about it." Yeah. And that's the thing. Darren Doogie Wolfson, who's one of the most plugged-in people we know, he goes with the line, "Journalism 101. Why am I being lied to?" Okay, the information that was disseminated to me, whether it be by an agent or whether it be by a team, why am I being given this information, and what is their agenda for this information to hit the public airwaves? So you've got teams that are going to hold their cards close to the vest, and they're going to say things to maybe lead other teams down one direction, and agents are going to try to do what's best for their players, and so they're going to say things. So Mike Florio, of course, he's known for stirring the pot, particularly about the Vikings. On one hand, he's a media member. On the other hand, he's a jaded, bitter Vikings fan because of what the Vikings always do, which nary the two shall meet sometimes. But this Trey Lance thing, it's one of those deals where it's like death, taxes, cockroaches, Kirk Cousins, and Trey Lance. Okay, you can put them all in that category of, here we go again. It's funny because I've made some content on Kirk and on Trey Lance and the possibility of trading it, and half the people love it, half the people hate it, but 95% are just like, you're doing another Kirk Cousins video for Trey Lance? I'm like, it keeps coming up in the news. What do you want me to do? I think that at this point, it's pretty obvious that they're ready to move on from Trey Lance, and they're trying to maximize the value that they can get for him. But it's just like anything else. When everybody else knows you're trying to sell off something, well, they know you don't want it anymore for whatever the reason may be. So they're going to try to get it at the lowest price, and you're going to try to sell it at the highest price. As far as what do I think about the Vikings and Trey Lance and that possibility? Well, there's two possibilities there. Possibility A is that you just straight up trade for Trey Lance to have him be your backup quarterback this year, learn from Kevin O'Connell for one more year, sit behind Kirk Cousins for one more year, and become the heir apparent and take over in 2024. The second thought process is no. Not only are you trading for Trey Lance, but you're also sending Kirk Cousins out to San Francisco, which then begets the question, are you ready to turn over this team right here, right now in 2023 to Trey Lance? I would definitely be okay with either scenario, depending on what you could possibly get back from San Francisco if you did the full package trade. But I'm also okay with it too if you're of the belief like me that the Vikings need to find their succession plan to Kirk Cousins, and it needs to be done sooner rather than later so that you don't become ultra desperate, I can listen to the discussion of a third-round pick for Trey Lance versus the possibility of giving up multiple first-round picks for one of the top-end quarterbacks in this year's draft. It's definitely a defensible position, and frankly, I would be okay for it either way. A lot of possibilities because of this no trade clause, and post June 1st because of the salary cap dead hits to both teams but no, I would be good with either option if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in the same boat. I wouldn't be a huge fan of getting Trey Lance in, but it does depend on the situation. If we're getting other compensation back, obviously we only have 5 draft picks. If we're getting, a third or two from San Francisco, because I think they have 3 third-round picks.
Right. They're all compensatory, so they're at the bottom, so they're basically end of third, top of fourth, but they got 3 of them, yeah.
Sure. If we would get some other compensation back with that, just to get more ammo in the draft, I would be fine with that. And obviously Trey Lance is a hometown guy. Vikings fans would probably love it, to be honest with you.
They'd eat that up.
Yeah, they would eat that up for sure. And this kind of feels like a trade Kwesi would maybe make, because he's kind of that guy that's, these high draft picks that haven't really panned out. You could really get this guy for kind of a bargain for what he was traded for back in 2021. San Francisco just mortgaged a lot to go up and get Trey Lance, and just hasn't worked out for him. But 49ers are such a well-run organization that this really hasn't even phased them, to be honest with you, at all.
Well, that's the thing about Kwesi. We use the cliche about him being a stock trader. Well, he buys low, but he also buys depreciated stocks that were high at one point that have lost significant value that he hopes can even get to. If you could get to 75 cents on the dollar to what Trey Lance was, but only pay 10 cents on the dollar, that's still a victory. And if you look at all of the moves that Kwesi has made this offseason, not bringing back Eric Kendricks and Adam Thielen and Patrick Peterson as a few examples, ultimately getting outbid for Dalvin Tomlinson. But all the guys that they've signed to 1 or 2 year deals. And even those that went beyond 1 year, they're really 1 year prove-it deals with a lot of what I call funny money behind them, where there's very little guarantees. And if you end up not re-signing or retaining those players, there's very few cap consequences, unlike the previous administration with Rick Spielman, where we got dead cap hit after void year after whatever else. So that would fit his profile. Younger player, still in his rookie contract. He would have 2 years left of his rookie contract, plus the 5th year option because he was a first-round pick. So you do have some time to evaluate him. And ultimately, if you did trade for him and after a year you realize, okay, yeah, this is why San Francisco wanted to get rid of him, well, then you get rid of him. And you don't have a whole lot of dead cap hits if you were to acquire somebody like Lance. So it definitely fits the mold of what Kwesi has done thus far this season.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting week or so, because I'm guessing if they plan on doing something, and like you said before, Kirk Cousins' contract kind of messes with things. I don't know if Kirk would be involved in the trade, maybe not at all. Just like you said, kind of let Trey sit behind Kirk for 1 more year. And I don't know if San Francisco is looking for another quarterback, because the Brock Purdy situation's a whole other deal to talk about.
Yeah.
But this would fit, like you said, what Kwesi's kind of looking for, kind of fit that timeline. He's got 2 more years left in his contract. All these contracts that he's signed in free agency, 1 to 2 year contracts, kind of give you an extra 1 or 2 years to figure out exactly what you want to do in the long term anyway. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting week or so, I think, when it comes to a lot of these talks about quarterback of the future, succession to Kirk Cousins. So, yep. And then speaking of the draft, coming up next Thursday, Justin, is there anyone certain that you're kind of really in love with? Any certain positions you're really in love with? Guys that can fit with the Vikings? Who are you kind of looking at that you're kind of really liking in this 2023 draft?
Dare to be a Daniel. Dare to dream big. Dare to be great. Not dare to be mediocre. I want Anthony Richardson. And some people are going to be like, really, Justin? Have you seen his stats? I'm like, yeah, I've seen his stats. Have you also seen his measurables? Not one portion of the measurables or the stats are the end-all be-all. It's a combination of both. I'm going to circle back a little bit. When we decided to move off of Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer, old, antiquated, not up with the times, part of why you hire Kevin O'Connell is to find the next guy. Because there will be a next quarterback after Kirk Cousins at some point, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to happen, whether that's in 1 year, 3 years, whatever the case may be. Part of why you hire Kevin O'Connell is to say the previous head coach wanted nothing to do with quarterbacks not named Teddy Bridgewater. The previous GM couldn't find a quarterback outside of signing Kirk Cousins. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater notwithstanding with that knee injury, we never know what might have been had he not gotten hurt. But nevertheless, part of why you hire Kevin O'Connell is to say we want a guy that we know we can trust to evaluate and develop the next guy. So I am not scared off by any of the shortcomings that Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud or Bryce Young would have. Obviously, again, it is a pipe dream because it's going to cost you an arm and a leg and a pound of flesh and a pint of blood to get one of those 3 guys. But to dare to dream, I will take Anthony Richardson. And the reason I say that is he's not the most ready right now. He definitely would need to sit for a year. but he has the highest ceiling and the highest potential, in my opinion. Yes, if we were in a better position, like let's say we were drafting like somewhere between 7 and 10, then yeah, I would pay the premium and I would get Bryce Young and I would start him right away. But we're not there. But where we are is in a position to let him sit for a year, let him be tutelage by Kevin O'Connell. And at the end of the day, I'm willing to take that risk, because what drives me crazy as a 44-year-old Vikings fan who's never seen the Vikings go to a Super Bowl, much less win one, is I'm kind of done being in the middle. I'm kind of done with being okay. The thing about Kirk Cousins, he's a very good quarterback. He's got a very high floor. You're not going to win any fewer than 7 or 8 games with Kirk Cousins as your quarterback. But he also has a little bit of a lower ceiling, in my opinion. And I'm willing to risk a guy that has a low floor for the potential of a high ceiling, because I want to see something I've never seen before, and that's the Vikings get to and possibly win a Super Bowl. So my draft crush, as you put it earlier, definitely in Anthony Richardson. I know, only a 10% chance of happening, but until it doesn't happen, I'm going to speak it into existence, or at least I'm going to die trying.
I really like that, to be honest with you, because Anthony Richardson, obviously, if he does turn out like potential-wise, he's a home run.
Yeah.
Home run. No one's going to worry about giving up 2 or 3 future first-round draft picks, because you got the quarterback of the future. And what is it? Is he 20 years old still, or is he 21?
I think he's 21, but I'll double check what we're thinking of. But the bottom line is he's not Hendon Hooker 25. I know that much.
Yeah. Either way, the dude's got a ton of football left and a ton of time to get better. I mean, you know, it would work out well, you know, sit behind Kirk Cousins. Kirk's, like you said, you know, he's a top 10, top 12-ish quarterback in this league, but he is a true professional. He comes to work every day. No one has ever questioned his, you know, work ethic or anything. It'd be a great person to sit behind for Anthony Richardson. I think that'd be a perfect situation. Would you probably have to move up to Arizona spot? Maybe to up to number 3, because you never know what the Raiders are going to do, or the Colts, who they're kind of looking for.
Right.
So you'd probably have to move up to number 3, to be honest with you. And it'd probably take 3 future firsts, I'm guessing, to move up 20 spots.
Yeah.
But
to answer your question,
if it is a home run, it's a home run.
To answer your question, he will turn 21 next month. So he'll become 21 next month. So, but to answer that's close enough. Listen, I did a short on my channel. Is the cost to move up really that high? As the title of it, and I basically broke down. It's like, yeah, there's this inherent fear of Christian Ponderitis that if we spend all of this and we take this guy and he doesn't work out, that it's going to cripple the franchise. Well, tell you what. Think back to the Herschel Walker trade if you're old enough to, and if you're not, just look it up about how disastrous it was. The Vikings still went to the playoffs. They were still competitive. It didn't help matters, and it maybe kept them from becoming that next level, absolutely, but it didn't utterly cripple them to becoming the Cleveland Browns for a decade. And realistically, until Justin Jefferson was picked a couple years ago, since 2015, our draft picks were Laquan Treadwell, and then we traded one for Sam Bradford, and then Mike Hughes, and then Garrett Bradbury, and rest in peace, Jeff Gladney. We got nothing out of those picks, basically. So, yes, the optics look bad where you traded 3 picks for a guy, or 3 picks and a player for a guy, or some combination, and it doesn't work, but it's not as crippling as we all want to make it out to be. Think back to, I think it was 2013, where we took Xavier Rhodes, Sharif Floyd, and Cordero Patterson. 3 first-round picks in 1 year. Okay, Xavier Rhodes was a solid corner, and he was one of the best in the league for a couple of years. Cordero Patterson was a nice kickoff return guy and an occasional running back and occasional wide receiver, but nothing special. Sharif Floyd, unfortunately, due to injury, we didn't get anything out of him. That's 3 first-round picks right there. That's 3 different scenarios where, guess what? We survived. So yeah. I'm not as scared off by it. Obviously, again, you don't want to trade it up and have it bust out. Of course not. But scared money don't make money. Sometimes you got to take a risk. Exactly. And let's not be content and comfortable risking this cute little club that always is competitive for the division and always exit in the wild card division round of the playoffs. It's okay. Take a risk.
Risk it for the biscuit. I love that.
There you go.
A lot of the times these playoff rosters, they're not built on first round selections. You got to start hitting on those 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks to fill out rosters. I think they were talking about it in these last playoffs, like majority of these rosters are built from mid to late round picks. This is where these playoff teams get good, because it builds out their depth. So, you know, if you have to give up a couple first rounders for your quarterback of the future, I think you go for it. I would be open for it. And I trust Kwesi, I trust Kevin O'Connell, and we were just talking about Trey Lance. The 49ers mortgaged their future for Trey Lance, and they're sitting in a fine position. I mean, they were in the NFC Championship game last year.
The thing about the 49ers is look at the last 11 or 12 years with them. They went in the Colin Kaepernick, Alex Smith era. They went to the NFC Championship game 3 years in a row, went to the Super Bowl once and lost. Then they had an 8-8 season, which was Harbaugh's last, and then they had 4 garbage seasons, 5-11 here, 4-12, 6-10, and 4 straight garbage seasons. But during that time, their roster kept getting built up with all those high-end first-round draft picks. And then in 2019, when they traded for Garoppolo, they were a stacked team. And since 2019, they've been back to the NFC Championship game twice, went to the Super Bowl, and lost once. So compare that to what the Vikings are. 49ers, up and down, up and down. Vikings, kind of in the middle. Yeah, those 4 or 5 years in the middle were probably garbage, and it probably sucked to be a fan of that team. But you've got 3 straight years. You got 2 straight three-peats on either end of going to the NFC Championship game and one of those times going to the Super Bowl. So if we're going to be content being that team that never takes a step back, because that's the thing about the Vikings. They rarely ever train wreck, which is a good thing on one hand. But on the other hand, they're never in a constant position to be taking guys like that 3-4 years in a row to where if they all do hit. Now, granted, like you said, it's not just about the first round picks, but it's the fact that you're picking high in every single round and you have a better chance of hitting on some of your later round picks there. So to me, San Francisco is kind of one of those deals where, all right, if you put Kirk Cousins on San Francisco, they would do this, this, and this. Yeah, I agree. If Kirk Cousins was their quarterback in 2019, they're absolutely going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes the way they were with Jimmy Garoppolo. But let's not forget that the San Francisco 49ers organically built themselves back to that position after being in that position with Smith and Kaepernick for a while. And that's something the Vikings just don't do. And so take a chance, get your guy, and if it doesn't work, we'll survive. And to your point, I trust Kwesi and O'Connell. That's why we hired him in the first place. That's why we moved off of Zimmer and Spielman. So, and if it doesn't work, well, then we'll find it the next couple of guys. So what?
Exactly. Now, after talking about Anthony Richardson, there's been some steam a little bit that maybe CJ Stroud might be falling down the draft boards a little bit. I don't know if that's a smokescreen from one of the teams looking to trade up for a quarterback or one that's kind of sitting in that area. What do you think of CJ Stroud and these other quarterbacks, maybe like a Will Levis or maybe a Hendon Hooker kind of sneaking into the end of the first round? What do you think about those prospects?
I am totally out on Hendon Hooker at the 23 pick. If you can take a player and then trade back up in the second round or trade back a couple slots, accumulate some draft picks, and then come and take a player and then come back and get Hendon Hooker in the second round, I can live with that. Sure. If Hendon Hooker hadn't sustained his injury, I would have him right up there with Young, Stroud, Richardson. Hooker would be right there, but he's not. Sure. We saw what happened with Teddy Bridgewater and how long it took him to recover. So, for example, if you took Hendon Hooker with your 23rd pick, he's not playing at all next year. And so is he going to be ready in 2024? Probably not. So then you're looking at a guy maybe to take over in 2025. I'm looking elsewhere. I'm looking for a guy that can take over in 2024 or who I believe has a chance to. I'm really not all that high on Will Levis. If Will Levis fell to 23, okay, I could take a chance on him there. I'm not trading up into the top 10 to get Will Levis. This ridiculous mock draft where we traded up to the 3rd pick and took Will Levis over Anthony Richardson? No way.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Again, I mean, my ultimate dream was there was a mock draft where the Vikings traded up to 14 with the Jets, and I'm thinking it was to take Levis there, and that would be relatively close. And it was Anthony Richardson, and I said, sign me up for that all day. If Will Levis gets to around pick 14 or 15 and you trade a 4th round pick to move up 8 slots, again, it wouldn't be my first choice. I'd rather go the Trey Lance route one way or the other than Will Levis. I just see a lot of similarities to Kirk and Will, and that's not fair to either one of those two guys, but Will Levis is a safe play. But he gives me the vibes of, once again, very high floor, but very low ceiling. So I'm kind of out on that. Sure. I believe the CJ Stroud stuff is complete smokescreen. CJ Stroud, for better or worse, if you're one of the people who, put stock into Ohio State quarterbacks have never turned into anything. Okay, name me another Marshall wide receiver that made it big in the NFL, not named Randy Moss, but I digress. at some point you can make the argument for every player at every position for every school, because that's all we have. There's going to be hits and misses everywhere else. If CJ Stroud fell, I'd be totally cool going up and getting him. I'm not afraid of this Ohio State stuff. I think CJ Stroud actually would be a really good fit in Kevin O'Connell's offense, because, you know, he's not just a one read guy and go, or, you know, just, oh, nothing's here, I'm going to run 5 seconds or 2 seconds after the ball's been snapped. But I think the CJ Stroud smokescreen is simply smokescreen that somebody's trying to, you know, that's what, like we said earlier, that's what players do. That's what teams do around the draft, is we're going to start something to see if we can get some guy cheaper than what it's ultimately supposed to cost us. Would I take Stroud in a heartbeat? I would.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning too. The only 2 quarterbacks that I would move up for are Stroud or Richardson. Those are the only 2 that I'd move up, because obviously I think Bryce Young is going to go #1 overall.
Yes.
But if somehow Houston takes a defensive player and Stroud's still there at #3 or Richardson's still there at #3, it would be very tempting. But if somehow in a God-sent world, if either of those quarterbacks got past the Raiders at #7, I'm moving up to #8 or wherever they land. I'm moving up.
Just make sure it's 9. I don't want to trade to Philly at 10, because I don't want to give them a bucket load of first-round picks. We've made that mistake. Exactly.
That's true.
If one of those guys gets past, if one of those guys gets past, I mean, if I'm Kwesi, and this is just a riverboat gambler me, I would already have made a trade with Arizona to say, all right, what's it going to take? Is it going to take 3 first-round picks and Danielle Hunter? Okay, yes. I would have already put myself in that position to guarantee myself one of those 3 guys. But Kwesi's not going to do that, because that is a slight overpay, and that's why he's the GM, and that's why we are Vikings fans, you know, creating content. But, yeah, if one of those guys goes, go up and get him, and you're not going to lose a night's sleep over it. You're really not.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, if you were a betting man, who's the Vikings quarterback in 2024?
Not Kirk Cousins.
That's fair.
Whether that's Trey Lance, whether that's any of the guys we've talked about, whether that's DTR out of UCLA, where if they decide they're not going to trade up for one of the big 3 and the other 2 guys just weren't in position to take, and you take a Dorian Thompson-Robinson in round 3 or 4, I think the only thing that I would bet on is that it would not be Kirk Cousins. But to try to pick out which one is anybody's guess. And again, sometimes people come back at me and say, Justin, you're just a negative Nancy. You're a Kirk Cousins hater. I don't hate Kirk Cousins. I've seen enough to where I think we've tapped out and gone as far as we can with him.
In 5 years.
You know what? That the old, well, it's not Kirk's fault this, and it's not Kirk's fault that, and defense this, and whatever else. I'm beyond the discussion of whose fault it is. Okay. You're right. Not everything. I agree. There are some people that hate Cousins so much that they blame him for everything that has happened wrong in the last 5 years, and that's unfair. But what's also equally as ridiculous is the people that want to put 0 blame on Kirk Cousins over the last 5 years. Go ahead and talk to me about how the last 2 years the defense has been – last 3 years the defense has been utter trash. But then you're going to conveniently leave out that we still had a pretty daggone defense in 18 and 19. Well, in 18 and 19, 18 he was, you know, strackled by Mike Zimmer and John DeFilippo. And then, you know, the unfortunate passing of Tony Sperano put the offensive line into shambles. Okay, at some point, how perfect does it have to be before we can actually say this guy just is what he is? Yes, I said it before. You put him on a team that's already ready built, like San Francisco in the last 5 years, absolutely, he can do it. But guys like Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr and Dak Prescott, they're all kind of the same to me. They all tap out at about the wild card or divisional round of the playoffs. If you're looking for them to elevate you to Super Bowl levels, it's probably not going to happen. You have a Super Bowl ready team and they're the last piece, absolutely you can. So for me, to answer your question about who is it in 2024, nobody not named Kirk Cousins. And I don't mean that in a hateful, spiteful way to him. I just mean that it's time to move on from the safe, cute little, hey, can you do worse than Kirk Cousins? Absolutely you can. But you can also do better. And I think it's time to try something better, or hope for something better anyway.
Yeah. No, either way, we're in agreement. I don't, there's a really low chance that Kirk's going to be here again next year. I think it's finally time that we find his successor. And I think Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi are in lockstep with that. I think it's time.
How many press conferences have Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell done where they've tiptoed around giving too much praise to Kirk Cousins. They tried to extend him for 1 year. Kirk Cousins, as is his right, said, no, I just had the best year of my career, and I'm about to be 35. I want my last contract. I want my golden parachute. And the Vikings said, no, we'll give you 1 year, and that's it. After, back and forth negotiations or whatever else. And the fact is that, we have an adequate quarterback who meets certain thresholds. If that's not that's not much of a ringing endorsement to me. So I'm with you. They like him. They're just not ready. They're just ready to say, hey, you know what? We got 1 year left on our lease with you. And after that, we're going in a different direction. And that's okay. That's okay.
Hey, exciting times, because it's been a while since we've had a young quarterback in here. Worth a damn. I mean, we had Kellen Mond, but obviously that didn't work out.
You didn't like John David Booty? Okay.
Yeah, he was kind of booty, to be honest with you. No, I appreciate it, Justin. Yeah. I appreciate you joining the episode here. Anything you want to say to fans or anything like that before you head out?
Hey, I know we got all the major platforms are going to be doing live, but I'm going to be doing a live stream on my channel on draft night, and I'm teaming up with a few other content creators. We've got about 4 different channels that we're all going to live stream Super Show on, so come check us out for that. Check me out on Purple and Gold for days. I'm also starting a secondary channel where I'm just going to have highlights and breakdowns of other sports teams in Minnesota as well, now that we got the Wolves and the Wild in the playoffs, and all kinds of programming predicament where everybody's playing on the same night for the next week and a half. But in all seriousness, check me out. That's Purple and Gold for days on YouTube. On Twitter, it's jday_24. Feel free to leave your comments, good, bad, or indifferent. We always like to have feedback, and we always like to hear, hey, what are you guys looking to hear from content creators? Brett, it was an absolute blast sitting here with you this afternoon, my friend.
I appreciate it, Justin. Likewise, follow this man, subscribe to this man. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. Appreciate it, Justin.
Have a good one.
You too.